2, 1. Shalom, everyone, and welcome to Torah Tuesday. Woo. Yeah. All right. This week's portion is Vayechi, and came near is what it means. And we're going to be in Bereshit or Genesis from chapter 47:28 to 50:26. So tonight we're going to finish Bereshit. Yay! 12 weeks. Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, as we go through the Parsha tonight, please write down any questions or comments that you have as we go through the portion. You should be looking for verses that you can apply to your daily life and help you transform into the likeness of Yeshua. So as we get started here, please silence your phones so we have no disruptions. And we're going to get ready to open up the floor to prayer or praise of the things you guys would like to share. So. Prayers or praise, anyone? Everybody good? Shamash Steve. No. Okay. I guess we can go to live stream then.
Nothing from live stream yet. It's a little early.
It's a little early. Okay. Okay. Brian's got something he wants to share. You guys are a tough crowd tonight. I know you're missing Rabbi Steve, right? We're all missing him. No.
Shalom, everybody. I want to ask for prayer for Esther. On Thursday, she's going to have a minor procedure done, and I'm not going to give any details, but just keep her in prayer, please.
Will do. Definitely. Any other prayer or praise?
I just wanted to praise Abba for our congregation, for the ladies. We had a great time on Sunday with honoring with Catherine's baby shower, and I just love how we show her love, and it was nice fellowship, and it's so nice to have the ladies here and just fellowship, and it's just great. So I just want to praise Abba for that.
Excellent. Yes, definitely. Any other prayer or praise? Live stream, do you have anything?
There's a multiple unspoken from Shelly Bell Perez. Prayers, please, for Miss Becky Huerta. From Delia Crumbaker, please pray for my friend Darren on a ventilator with COVID pneumonia, that he improves and starts healing. From Knuckles, I have COVID. It is unpleasant. Please send a prayer up for me. From Sunflower, prayers for my husband that's recuperating from a procedure in his mouth. Thank you. More unspoken. From Kay Carrick, prayers for miracles and our transition back to the States. From Carrie Ann Worthy, prayer request please. Prayers for Becky Huerta. May Abba provide her with a speedy recovery and relief from pain. Prayers for relief of carpal tunnel pain for Shelly Bell and I also. From Shelly Bell Perez, prayers for my neighbor and for my Marco Polo sisters and brothers worldwide, and for my carpal tunnel syndrome in my hand. From Miss C being renewed, prayers for my daughter's pregnancy to go well in the next couple of weeks for protection over her and her family. From Stephanie Henderson, praise a healthy new grandson and the C-section went well. From Vaskin, continued prayers for Rabbi and leadership, my Marco Polo brothers and sisters, and all the congregation around the world still unable to work. From Shuriak Pelu, prayers please for my friend whose son died. From Joseph Neal, prayers for some of those MTOI or Urbana who are under the weather. And from Chantel Jackson, prayers for me. I've been dealing with mouth pain, praying for a simple solution. And that is all the prayers and praises.
That is all. Thank you, Grayson. And Elder Billy.
So my wife stole one, but another is from Ashley and Michael Condon. I spoke with them today. They asked me if I would have you guys pray for them. They're dealing with some transitioning with Ashley's mom and some challenges there emotionally, and so we just want to lift them up in prayer, and I told them we would.
Excellent. We've had a few latecomers, so any prayers or praises? Anybody before we move on? Okay. We'd also like to pray for those that have emailed or called through the week prior to this service since Shabbat. So let's keep them lifted up. And then if I can have a volunteer for prayer. Yeah, go ahead, Paul. Yes.
Avinu Malkeinu, our Father and King, we want to lift up all these prayers, spoken and unspoken, and lay them at your feet. And we just ask that you answer them all in your way and help us to receive them. With the authority of the name Yeshua. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, sir. Okay, we are going to get ready for the readings. We're going to need 6 readers for this week's Parsha. So if I could get 6 volunteers, and then we'll get started. Okay, Paul, if you'd like to come up, you'll do, okay. We're going to, I'll give that to you here in just a minute. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Paul, who has come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, you're going to take us from Genesis 47. Actually, hang on, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong page. 47:28 to 48:9. Yep, 47:28 to 48:9.
And Joseph made it a law over the land of Mitzrayim to this day that Pharaoh should have 1/5, except for the ground of the priest only, which did not become Pharaoh's. And Israel dwelt in the land of Mitzrayim, in the land of Goshen, and they had possessions there, and were fruitful and increased exceedingly. And Jacob lived in the land of Mitzrayim 17 years. So the length of Jacob's life was 147 years. And the time for Israel to die drew near. And he called his son Joseph and said to him, Now if I have found favor in your eyes, please put your hand under my thigh and show loving commitment and truth to me. Please do not bury me in Mitzrayim, but I shall lie with my fathers, and you shall take me up out of Mitzrayim and bury me in the burial place. And he said, I do as you have said. And he said, Swear to me. And he swore to him, and Israel bowed himself on the head of the bed. And after these events, it came to be that it was said to Joseph, See, your father is sick. And he took him with his 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And Jacob was told, See, your son Joseph is coming to you. And Israel strengthened himself and sat up on the bed. And Jacob said to Joseph, El Shaddai appeared to me in the land of Canaan and blessed me, and said to me, See, I am making you fruitful, and shall increase you, and make of you an assembly of peoples, and give this land to your seed after you as an everlasting possession. And now your 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, who were born to you in the land of Mitzrayim, before I came to you in Mitzrayim, are mine. As Reuben and Shimon, they are mine. Your offspring, whom you shall bring forth after them, are yours, and let them be called by the name of their brothers in their inheritance. And I, when I came from Padan, Rachel died beside me in the land of Canaan on the way, when there was but a little distance to go to Ephraim. And I buried her there on the way to Ephraim. That is Bethlehem. And Yisrael saw Joseph's sons and said, Who are these? And Joseph said to his father, They are my sons whom Elohim who has given me in this place. And he said, Please bring them to me and let me bless them.
Thank you, Paul. Taylor, for a second reading. He who blessed our fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Taylor, who has come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and bring blessing and prosperity on all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, you're going to take us from 48:10 through 22.
And the eyes of Israel were dim with age, and he was unable to see. And he drew them near him, and he kissed them and embraced them. And Israel said to Joseph, I had not thought to see your face, but see, Elohim has also shown me your seed. So Joseph brought them from between his knees and bowed them down with his face to the earth. And Joseph took them both, Ephraim with his right hand toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh with his left hand toward Israel's right hand, and brought them near him. And Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it on Ephraim's head, who was the younger, and his left hand on Manasseh's head. Consciously, directly, his hand for Manasseh was the firstborn. And he blessed Joseph and said, The Elohim before whom my fathers Abraham and Yitzhak walked, the Elohim who has fed me all my life long to this day. The messenger who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the youths, and let my name be called upon them, and the name of my father Abraham and Yitzhak, and let them increase to a multitude in the midst of the earth. And when Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand on the head of Ephraim, it was evil in his eyes, and he took hold of his father's hand to remove it from the head of Ephraim to the head of Manasseh. And Joseph said to his father, Not so, my father, for this one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head. But his father refused and said, I know, my son, I know. He also becomes a people, and he also is great. And yet his younger brother is greater than he, and his seed is to become the completeness of the nations. And he blessed them on that day, saying, And you, Israel, shall bless them, saying, Elohim make you as Ephraim and as Manasseh. Thus he put Ephraim before Manasseh, and Israel said to Joseph, See, I'm dying, but Elohim shall be with you and bring you back to the land of your fathers. And I have given to you one portion above your brothers, which I took from the hand of the Amorite with my sword and with my bow.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Taylor. Okay, Janet. He who blessed her fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Janet, who has come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and bring blessing and prosperity on all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, you're going to take us from Genesis 49:1 through 18.
And Jacob called his sons and said, Gather together so that I declare to you what is to befall you in the last days. Gather together and hear, you sons of Jacob, and listen to Israel your father. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my power and the beginning of my strength. the excellency of exaltation and the excellency of power. Boiling like water, you do not excel because you went up to your father's bed, then you defiled it. He went up to my couch. Shimon and Levi are brothers. Their weapons are implements of violence. Let my being not enter their council. Let my esteem not be united to their assembly, because they killed a man in their displeasure, and they lamed an ox in pleasure. Cursed be their displeasure, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. You, Yehuda, your brothers praise you. Your hand is on the neck of your enemies. Your father's children bow down before you. Yehuda is a lion's cub. From the prey you have gone up of my son. He bowed down, he crouched like a lion, and like a lion, who does rouse him? The scepter shall not turn aside from Yehuda, nor an inscriber from between his feet, until Shiloh comes, and to him is the obedience of peoples. Binding his donkey to the vine, and his donkey's colt to the choice vine, he washed his garments in wine, and his robes in the blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine, and his teeth whiter than milk. Zebulun dwells at the seashore. He is for a haven for ships, and his border is unto Sidon. Jesus carries a strong donkey lying down between two burdens. And he saw that a resting place was good, and that the land was pleasant, and he inclined his shoulder to bear a burden, and became a subject to slave labor. Dan rightly rules his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan is a serpent by the way, an adder by the path, that bites the horse's heels, so that its rider falls backward. I have waited for your deliverance, O Yahweh.
Amen. Thank you, Janet. Okay. Rhonda, I'm sorry. I draw a blank now and again. He who blessed our fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob may bless Rhonda, who has come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and bring blessing and prosperity on all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, Rhonda, you're going to take us from Genesis 49:19 through 33.
Gad, a raiding band raids him, but he raids its heel. Bread from Asher is rich, and he gives delicacies of the sovereign. Naphtali is a deer let loose. He gives words of excellence. Joseph is an offshoot of the fruit-bearing tree, an offshoot of a fruit-bearing tree by a fountain. His branches run over a wall, and the archers have bitterly grieved him, shot at him and hated him. But his bow remained in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty one of Yaakov. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Yisrael. From the El of your fathers, who helps you, and by the Almighty, who blesses you with blessings of the heavens from above, blessings from the deep that lies beneath, blessings from the breasts of the womb. The blessings of your father have excelled, and blessings of my ancestors, up to the limit of the everlasting hills, are on the head of Joseph, and on the crown of the head of him who has separated from his brothers. Benjamin is a wolf that tears in the morning and eats prey, and at night he divides the spoil. All these are the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is what their father spoke to them. And he blessed them, and he blessed each one according to his own blessing. And he commanded them and said to them, I am to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite, in the cave that is in the field of the Machpelah, which is before Mamre, in the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought with the field of Ephron the Hittite as a possession for a burial site. There they buried Abraham and Sarah, his wife. There they buried Yitzhak and Ribkah, his wife. And there I buried Leah, the field purchased, and the cave which is in it, from the son of Heth. And when Yaakov ended commanding his sons, he drew his feet up into the bed and breathed his last and was gathered to his people.
Thank you, Rhonda. Dwayne. He who blessed our fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob may bless Dwayne, who has come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Dwayne, you're going to take us from Genesis 50, 1 through 13.
And Joseph fell on his father's face and wept over him and kissed him. And Joseph commanded his servants and the physicians to embalm his father. So the physicians embalmed Israel. And 40 days were completed for him, for so are completed the days of embalming. And the Mitzrites wept for him 70 days. And when the days of weeping for him were past, Joseph spoke to the household of Pharaoh, saying, If now I have found favor in your eyes, please speak in the hearing of Pharaoh, saying, My father made me swear, saying, See, I am dying. Bury me in my burial site, which I dug for myself in the land of Canaan. And now please let me go up and bury my father and return. And Pharaoh said, Go up and bury your father, as he made you swear. And Joseph went up to bury his father. And with him went up all the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of his house, and all the elders of the land of Mitzrayim, and all the house of Joseph and his brothers, and his father's house. Only their little ones and their flocks and their herds they left in the land of Goshen. And there went up with him both chariots and horsemen, and it was a very great company. And they came to the threshing floor of Atad, which is beyond the Yarden, and they lamented there with a great and very heavy lamentation, and he performed 7 days of mourning for his father. And when the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning at the threshing floor of Atad, they said, This is a grievous mourning for the Mitzrites. That is why its name was called Abel Mitzrayim, which is beyond the Yarden. And his sons did to him as he had commanded them. For his sons brought him to the land of Canaan, and buried him in the cave of the field of Machpelah before Mamre, which Abraham bought with the field from Ephron the Hittite as property for a burial site.
Amen. 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 Thank you, Dwayne. Grayson. He who blessed our fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob may bless Grayson, who has come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Grayson, you're going to take us from Genesis 50, verse 14 through 26, which is the end of the book.
And after he had buried his father, Joseph returned to Mitzrayim, he and his brothers and all who went up with him to bury his father. And when Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, What if Joseph hates us and pays us back all the evil which we did to him? And they sent word to Joseph, saying, Before your father died, he commanded, saying, This is what you are to say to Joseph, I beg you, please forgive the transgression of your brothers and their sin, for they did evil to you. And now please forgive the transgression of the servants of the Elohim of your father. And Joseph wept when they spoke to him. And his brothers also went and fell down before his face, and they said, See, we are your servants. And Joseph said to them, Do not fear, for I am in the place of Elohim. And you intended evil against me, but Elohim intended it for good, in order to do it as it is this day, to keep a great many people alive. And now, do not fear, I provide for you and your little ones. So he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. And Joseph dwelt in Mitzrayim, he and his father's household. And Joseph lived 110 years. And Joseph saw Ephraim's children to the third generation. The children of Machir, son of Methuselah, Manasseh, my fault, were also born on Joseph's knees. And Joseph said to his brothers, I am dying, but Elohim shall certainly visit you and bring you out of this land to the land of which he swore to Abraham, to Yitzhak, and to Yaakov. And Joseph made the children of Israel swear, saying, Elohim shall certainly visit you, and you shall bring up my bones from here. And Joseph died, being 110 years old, and they embalmed him, and he was placed in a coffin in Mitzrayim.
Amen. Thank you, Grayson. Okay. Hey, we got through Bereshit, huh? Thank you to all those readers. Let's give them a round of applause. And we got through the book of Bereshit. So what do we say after we finish the book? Hazak, Hazak, Vanit, Hazek. Be strong, and be strengthened. Amen. Amen. Okay, let me take care of this stuff. We'll get started on the announcements. Actually, we got to do the traditional blessings after the readings. Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tukenu Baruch atah Yahweh noten haTorah. Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh our Elohim, King of the universe, who has given us the Torah of truth and has planted eternal life in our midst. Blessed are you, Yahweh, giver of the Torah. Amen. Okay. And now we're to the announcements portion. So the first thing we'd like to do is welcome all our guests, both online and those, if we have any here. So we live stream this Torah reading and Midrash on Tuesdays at 6:30 Eastern Time every week on YouTube. So hopefully you can join us here for the Torah readings, and then we do a Midrash afterwards, which we'll soon do here. And to just discuss the portion, any questions or comments. So on Shabbat, we start the live stream on YouTube at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And at 1:15, our services start with the sounding of the shofar. We do this as well every week, and the next time is December 18th, this Shabbat. So you can join us here every Shabbat and every Tuesday for those services. And the YMTOI Parsha Pearls with Rebbitzin Julie and her team. Let's give them a round of applause. There's a lot of hard work that goes into that, we know. The website for the YMTOI is ymtoi.org, and the Parsha Pearls is free and downloadable and printable. So the Parsha Pearls, inside the Parsha Pearls, let's see, actually it's for the Gem Seekers and Pearl Seekers are the two divisions. The Gem Seekers, Katan Aleph, are ages 5 through 8. And the Pearl Seekers are Katan, Bet, and Gadol, ages 9 to 19, or really there's something there for everyone. So just take some time and go through those, especially if you, so. Inside the Parsha Pearls, Hebrew word studies, memory verses, word searches, crossword puzzles, mazes, crafts, notebook pages, coloring pages, songs, and snacks. And all of those are, put together. I think they go out on Sundays, I believe, is when that gets sent out. And all of those are focused on that week's Torah portion. So for this week, it went out on Sunday. And with the kids in the program, the Parsha Pearls program, they'll go over that this coming Shabbat. So, okay, and then the audio scripture readings by our own Shira Wendling. Yay! She's gone from Genesis to Revelation, so the entire Bible. And through the Torah, they're broke up in Parsha portions. And this, again, is free and downloadable on the website at MTOI.org under Media, under Scripture Readings. So thank you, Shira. And then Torah Time on Zoom with Rabbi Tom. Ooh. That's every Thursday at 1 p.m., and it's for the Gadol age kids from 13 to 19. And you can email for the Zoom link at torahtime@mtoi.org. So I know Rabbi Tom's been having a good time with that, so, and hopefully the kids are as well, I'm sure. Next on our list is MTOI is an international ministry. We facilitate congregations in many countries. And because of this, we have zone meetings so that everyone around the world can ask questions via live stream and Zoom on their Shabbat based on their time zone. So Zone 3 is coming up this Friday night, and that's December 17th. The third Friday night of every month at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, which is on the third Shabbat of the month. But on Friday night, though, at 10 o'clock. This, again, is so that it's still Shabbat where they're at. This is in our Zoom room, and the questions and such are, Rabbi really focuses, and Elder Billy focus on the Zone 3 people. So that's like Australia, New Zealand, the Philippines, that part of the world there. And they focus on their questions first. If there's leftover time, maybe some other folks that join in from Zone 2 and Zone 1 can ask questions as well. And I think what the Zone 2 meeting that we just had, what was there, 108 on there, Billy? Was that what it was? So, yeah, excellent. And then we have the Zone 1 meeting, Shabbat question and answer, and that's for our time zone, North America, South America, Central America. And the next one is on January 1st. It's the first Shabbat of the month, and it's at the normal Shabbat service time. So that service starts at 1:15 Eastern, and then that's live streamed on YouTube. Now the other two, Zone 2 and Zone 3, just to not cause any confusion, are in the Zoom room, but Zone 1 is on the live stream on YouTube during our regular Shabbat service. So Zone 2, Shabbat question and answer, January 8th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. That's the second Shabbat of the month, and it's on Shabbat morning so that it is still Shabbat where they're at as well. And this is in our Zoom room. The zone meeting Zoom room link stays the same, but if you need the link, you can email at zoom@mtoi.org. And for questions that you want to send in, now those questions aren't for immediate response or answers, but they could be in a small teaching that Rabbi does, or they could be responded to during a zone meeting or some other time. But you can send those questions that you have, if you want to write them and send them in, to questions@mtoi.org. And then our Leadership Council meeting. Ooh. The next one's on January 9th. It's a Sunday morning. At 10 a.m. is the Zone 2 South African meeting, and at noon is the full council. The purpose is, in our meetings, is how can we work together to serve the body on behalf of Yahweh. And these meetings, it's leadership around the world, and the leaders have small groups or groups that they lead wherever they're at, and we get together. And I think we have between 35 and 40 leaders right now that get together for those meetings. So keep those in prayer. There's a lot of work and effort, a lot of time that Elder Billy and Rabbi Steve put into those, as well as the guys all around the world, because some of those guys are, doing these meetings at like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. They're getting up for these meetings, and they're spending 3 to 4 hours on these meetings. So, they're really devoted, dedicated to it, and, we need to keep them lifted up. So, then January 2nd, we have Rosh Chodesh Shabbat. Ooh. So, and then January 7th, we have the Erev Shabbat service and dinner at 6:30 p.m. Yay! And then March 17th, we have Purim. I was testing you to see if you guys were listening. Purim, this is a Thursday night. We have a dinner and a Megillah reading from the book of Esther at 6:30 p.m., so you'll have to join us for that as well. And then we have Pesach and Hag HaMatzot. Yeah, now you liven up. You guys are just looking for that 8-day feast, seven-day feast. Because it's always Sukkot and Pesach, Hag HaMatzot, that everybody gets excited. Why is that? Okay, April 15th is sundown is the Passover meal. This is a Friday night. And then Hag HaMatzot goes from April 16th to the 22nd. The high days are Saturday, April 16th and Friday, April 22nd. And we will continue this celebration until Sunday, April 24th, since it rolls into the weekly Shabbat. So for us, it's April 15th through the 24th. So I think that completes us on the announcements. So we'll get ready for our Midrash. So as we go through this portion and with questions and answers and comments, please give Grayson a break on live stream. I'm sure we got some of the Shamishes in the room. Pay them respect. Online, don't give them any grief, or else they'll have to put you in timeout. So yeah, give them respect, please, and give Grayson your respect as you guys send in those questions, answers, and so on and so forth. So, okay, well, we'll get started on the Midrash. Live stream first? Okay, let's go live stream first. What we're going to do, we're going to try to go one question, ask your one question, then get back in line if you have multiples. But that way everybody kind of gets a bit of a rotation. So, Grayson, do you have some questions? Okay, let's go ahead and start over here. Yeah, come on up, Tony.
I'm still looking for the verse, but where Israel has Joseph swear by putting his hand under his thigh. I was just wondering, what's
29 if you want that.
Is it 29?
Yeah.
What is the, I guess, symbolic importance of the thigh?
Well, there's a lot of thought there and a lot of commentary on it, but really for us what we can look at is it was a personal commitment between the two of them in the way that he asked him to put his hand under his thigh. So I think we'll probably just leave it at that. But again, not many people are you going to ask to put your hand under your leg or anything else when you're sitting there. So obviously this is very personal and it's a trustworthy matter. And he was asking for his commitment to see that promise through. So really that's what it was about more than anything. So next question. Live stream, do we have anything or nothing yet?
I got one. All righty, let's see. 47:29. It says, if I have found favor in your eyes. So here to me it seems like grace is given based on what he did. So can you help clarify that for us?
47:29, and the time for Israel to die drew near, and he called his son Joseph and said to him, now if I have found favor. So he's looking for that favor in your eyes. Please put your hand under my thigh and show loving commitment and trust to me. Please do not bury me in Mitzrayim. So Israel has a concern. He does not want to be left or be buried in Mitzrayim. So he's asking his son, and he's looking, he's deferring the authority to his son, really is what he's doing. And because he knows once he's dead and gone, he's not going to have a say in the matter. So he really has to trust his son in this one. So he's deferring that favor, and he's saying, if I have found favor, if I've done anything for you to appreciate me, to respect me, to love me, please do this for me. It's my dying wish, basically, as he's preparing for his death here. So really that's the favor that he's talking about here, but it's a deferment of authority to his son. Because he knows his son is the one going to be making those decisions at that time. Go ahead. Yep, go ahead, Janet. We'll jump over to live stream here in a minute. We'll give them time to type in whatever they've got.
All right, so I was thinking about verse 29 when it said that Jacob lived in the land of Mitzrayim 17 years. and then the length of his days were 147 years. But I was thinking how Abba was so compassionate with him and gave him 17 years to enjoy with Joseph. And actually, after everything that he went through, I'm sure those last years were really peaceful and provided, and and he was with his son. I mean, all his sons, and that was so amazing.
Yeah,
I
it
love
is
that.
after everything that he'd went through and the anticipation or the fear actually and the anxiety and the hurt that he had suffered for years and years over when he thought Joseph had been killed by a wild animal, to go through all of that and then to be able to go there in his latter years and be able to spend 17 more years. It is awesome. Yeah.
And then the
Praise
other
Abba.
thing I had was on verse 30. So he wanted that you were saying the dying wish was to be buried with his ancestors,
Mm-hmm.
and instead of staying there, and he even says, "Swear to me," it seemed like it was a very important thing for him. So I guess my question was that, was there anything more than just being gathered with his people? I mean, I don't know if the Jews were going to, how we do nowadays, we go to the cemetery and we bring flowers and things. Can you help me understand what there was a significance about being buried with his people?
Well, he wanted to be buried with his family. His wife, Leah, was there, so he wanted to be buried with his wife as well. We know Rachel was buried along the road to Bethlehem, so she wasn't, buried at the same place. And I think there's some specific points to be made about that as well. But Leah was there, and his father was there, and mom, and so on and so forth. And that was just the plan from the beginning, and that's where he wanted to be at rest as well. So, live stream, anything on 47?
From Shelley Bell Perez, 47 verse 28. Yisrael bowed himself on the head of the bed means that he bowed prostrate on his bed, right?
Yes, he did bow over the head of his bed, and we know that also, Joseph's dream, we can kind of see that being fulfilled because, the sun and the moon and the stars and all that, we remember that dream from a couple Parshas back. So this is just being fulfilled again there, and later we're going to see his brothers do the same thing after his death. So I think there's some significance there, and that's really what we're seeing being worked out here. So thank you.
That is all for chapter 47.
Okay, any more 47? Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, in 47:31, some of it says, "Swear to me." So to me, it seems in that time, our word or your word given had great meaning and integrity. But today, it doesn't seem like it's lost its importance. So can you cover how we shouldn't negate our word or our promises?
Well, we should definitely hold up to our word. I know it's tough. Look, let's be real here. We read the newspapers, we watch the news, we hear lies and manipulation and deceit all the time. And even in our, you watch television, movies, whatever, you see lies, deception, deceit, so on and so forth. So it's all around us, and it's very easy to get caught in that trap. And we need to be extra careful to not be like that. We're to bring Abba, glory and honor and not shame. And so if we get caught in lies or find that we're not holding up to our end of the bargain or our word, then we definitely need to be corrected on that. And we should be open to our brothers correcting us too. If you catch me in something where I've made a mistake or vice versa, you should be open to that correction from a brother or from leadership or wherever that comes from, or a spouse. And guess what? Even our children sometimes catch us in those as well, and we need to be open to that correction. So, okay. All right, let's jump to chapter 48. Anything here for 48? We can start with one here.
Yes, 48. 4, right? When he's talking about the words, right, that Jacob is relating, what happened. He's telling Joseph that El Shaddai appeared to him and that he told him, I'm making you fruitful and shall increase you and make of you an assembly of peoples and give this land to your seed after you as an everlasting possession. So it's, to me, what's covenant, right?
Yes, definitely. It's he's basically speaking of the same promise given to Abraham in the beginning, and we can see with Yitzhak as well, and you can look those up in Genesis 17:8. There's a reference. Basically, this is a reference to that in Genesis 26 3-5 as well. We can see those that covenant conversation. Yes.
Right. So everything that was promised was given, and that's the completion of that promise.
Yes.
Which is awesome. And 7. Do we know, I know before we were talking about how for Jacob it was important to be buried with his ancestors, and he says that Leah was in Machpelah, but Rachel was not buried there. Do we know why was that?
Well, I mean, if you look in Jeremiah, Jeremiah 31, I think around 14, 15, right in through there, you'll read about that same, about Rachel weeping and crying for her children. And it's just kind of a prophetic picture looking forward to the time of Yeshua and then the end times and so on and so forth. But we won't go too far into that. But definitely there's some importance in Rachel being buried along that road, because during the Assyrian captivity also as well, when they're being taken out, they're going to be going right through that area, and guess who's there. So anyways, that's the significance of it. If there's more to it than that, then I'm unaware, but I think that's the reason why Rachel is buried along that roadside. And basically that's where she passed away. Now, she wasn't too far from that burial site, but again, I think Abba had a purpose and a plan for her being there, and there's scripture that backs that up, again in Jeremiah, and I think there's one other area as well that I think you could look up and find that. So, yep. Yeah, let's go to live stream. Do you have something, Grayson?
From Miss C being renewed, verse 17, it was evil in his eyes. Was this simply because of the age and order of birth alone?
When Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand on the head of Ephraim, it was evil in his eyes, and he took. Yeah, it was basically just because of the age of the children. He naturally thought that the older one was going to receive the blessing. And so it was evil because it was not what he thought or desired at the time, because of the way he was looking at the situation. Now, when his father explained that to him, obviously he accepted that. And so that's that thought of evil in his eyes. Next question.
That's all for chapter 48 at this time.
Okay.
Right, so I have another one, 15, verse 15, it says, and he's talking about the blessings, right? And he says, and he blessed Joseph and said, the Elohim before whom my fathers Abraham and Yitzchak walked, the Elohim who has fed me all my life, long to this day, right? And so I just love how he says that, the Elohim who has fed me all my life. It's just so beautiful how much he depended on him, even in the language of his blessing. And then I have a question on 16. It says, a messenger who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the youth and let my name be called upon them, and the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac. So what does that mean when he says that, let my name be called upon them?
Okay, let's see. Basically, I mean, the messenger who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the youth, and let my name be called upon them in the name of my fathers Abraham and Yitzhak, and let them increase in multitude in the midst of the earth. So it's just that blessing, we're called through, when we refer to Abraham, it's Father Abraham, right, or Yitzhak, or they're the patriarchs. And so this is just that blessing being passed down through. Yeah, so, and it's, it's genealogy and so on and so forth to show where you come from and who, and he knows that the name Avraham and Yitzhak, has some clout and authority there. So it's just going to bless the youth. So, yep. Oh, let's go ahead with one more, and then we'll jump to live stream again.
All right, one more. So I have 20, okay, verse 20, when it says, and he blessed them on that day, saying, in you Israel shall bless, saying, Elohim make you as Ephraim, as Manasseh. Thus he put Ephraim before Manasseh. And so I just remind me of the blessings that we do on our Shabbat.
Yes.
Be like.
Yep, go ahead.
No, you
Oh,
can go
yeah,
ahead.
that is exactly where that blessing comes from, is right here in this Parsha. We have a couple different things that we're going to see here of the traditions that we do today, and these are the roots of them. So, and that is one of those, yes. Live stream?
Do you mind a late one for 47?
Oh, no, that's fine.
Okay. So from Cindy Taylor, it's interesting that Yaakov was given 17 years in Mitzrayim and Joseph was 17 years old when he was sold. Is this anything significant or just coincidence?
I don't like to say coincidence because I think everything has a purpose and a place. It's just we don't really have anything that jumps out at us or anything to hang on to justify anything more than that. So at this point, no. There's nothing more that we know about that.
From Arthur and Linda for chapter 48, verse 5. Point of interest, Reuben and Shimon were first and second born. Now Yaakov is putting Ephraim and Manasseh in the same standing as Reuben and Manasseh. I think he means Reuben and Simon.
Yeah, Reuben and Shimon. Reuben was the firstborn, but Ephraim and Manasseh, it's actually reversed. So Ephraim was the secondborn, right? So it's actually in reverse order there, yeah.
From Clifton Madison for chapter 48, 21 through 22. Did Yaakov gain some other land to give Joseph?
Did he gain some other land?
Yes. I believe he's referencing verse 22 about him taking land from the Amorites.
No, this was actually, Shechem, that area, and the things that went on there. So, no, I don't think he gained any specific land in this situation, but prior to that, he definitely had acquired some, yes.
That's all for chapter 48.
Okay. Any other questions? Go ahead, Janet.
Yes, I have 21, right? When he's dying, you're right? And he says, see, I am dying, but Elohim shall be with you and bring you back to the land of your fathers. It reminds me of how when, Moshe was dying and then he passed it on to Joshua, but also how when Yeshua was dying and he knew hour was approaching, he said, but you're not going to be left orphans, but I'll send the Ruach to guide you, to give you,
Yeah, which is really incredible, because, most of us often die and never realize. But I think when you live a long life and a natural death, a lot of times ours today are subject to disease and illness and problems and health issues, things that we create for ourselves. But I think when you live maybe a more natural, long life and a healthier life, truthfully, I think, those, you start to realize what's coming. But in this case, obviously, Israel had, understanding and insight that we can't understand. But there are those out there, though. We've heard of loved ones, grandmothers, grandfathers that just seem to know when it's time or when their time. You can tell by their response and their actions and so on and so forth. And they're ready, but he right here, it's incredible how timely it was. I agree. But again, it's Moshe, recapping all these moments as well. So, we don't know minutes, hours, days in between these things. So, but it just looks like to us, it's like boom, 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 systematically. So, Shamash Steve.
Okay. Since some of my for 48 were asked, I had one other that talked about 48:5, where they said, "These are mine." It seemed like he was taking and now your two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, who were born in land of Mitzrayim before I came to you in Mitzrayim, are mine. As Reuben and Shimon, they are mine. So who is talking, and what do they mean by they're his?
Israel is talking, and basically he's taken Ephraim and Manasseh through basically adoption, and he's making them as his own. And he's sharing this with Yosef so that he's aware of this before the blessings come about here in chapter 49. So.
Okay, and then in 48:19, the younger is called the completeness of the nations. So if you could expound on that.
But his father refused and said, I know, my son, I know. He also becomes a people, and he also is great. And yet his younger brother is greater than he, and his seed is to become the completeness of the nations. The completeness of the nations, we can see again a reference or a fullness of the nations. It's a time, it's a number, it's a situation that, is prophetic. We really don't understand, it's down the road in future, but we can read about it in Romans 11, 10 and 11. We see a lot of those pictures. In Hosea 9:17, we see some information on that as well. So if you'd like to go and check those out, that might help out. But it's that fullness of the nations, or that we're seeing here. So Abba has a plan and a purpose and a specific number, and and that's what he is waiting for. And what that is, we don't know, but it's in his time. So go ahead, Taylor.
All right. For verses 11 and 12, 48. And Israel said to Joseph, I had not thought to see your face, but see, Elohim has also shown me your seed. So Joseph brought them from between his knees. Joseph brought them from between his knees, and he bowed down with his face to the earth. Did Joseph bow down because of what Israel said to him about him being able to see his seed?
Yeah, well, also because of what he said earlier. So basically he was submitting to his father's authority there and allowing his father to take those two and bless them, right? And take them as his own through that adoption. And so for many, it was just a submission to authority there that Joseph is looking at. So,
thank you.
Any other questions in 48? Live stream, do you have anything in 48? Nothing in 48. Good? Or nothing? Okay, nothing in 48. Okay, let's go on to 49. So 49, go ahead, Brianna.
In verses 23 through 24, it says, And the archers have bitterly grieved him, shot at him, and hated him. But his bow remained in strength, and in the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. The imagery of the blessing of Joseph made me think of Ephesians 6:16, which is the armor of Elohim. And it says, Above all, having taken up the shield of belief, with which you shall have the power to quench all the burning arrows of the wicked one. So in the other verses where it says, his bow remained in strength, even though the arrows were coming at him, it encouraged me to be more strong and not allow whatever the world throws at me to weaken me or cause fear and doubt, because Joseph trusted in Yahweh through crazy things that I'm definitely not going to go through, but I will have other things that will be thrown at me. But above all, he trusted, and he knew that he had a plan, and I have to trust that he has a plan for me.
Oh, man. Excellent. No, that's great. Thank you. Definitely, definitely. Okay, and as we go through 49, I should have laid down a couple ground rules. So we're not going to go too far into what all these situations mean, like Zebulun and Issachar, and Rabbi said, no, we're not going into the esoteric and thoughts and ideas. And many of these things, look, we just can't, we can't firmly explain. So I understand and agree with his point completely, is that we would just be guessing, and there's no reason to guess. There's a few pictures and things that we can pull out that we're pretty confident in because of history and scripture, and we can land on those, but many of this, it's just, we don't have anything firm to grab onto, so. Okay, so I'll just throw that out there before I get in trouble. Okay, go ahead, Shama Steve.
All right, well, how about this one then?
The challenge.
49:10. The scepter shall not turn aside from Yehuda, nor an inscriber from between his feet, until Shaul comes, and to him is the obedience of the people. Can you expound on that?
Well, Shiloh comes, it means he who owns it. And the scepter is what? When we think of a scepter, we think of a king, right? When we think of the king, the scepter is, that picture of authority. And when he lets down that scepter, and we read about that in the book of Esther, right? So when he lets down that scepter, he gives permission for things to happen or people to speak and so on and so forth. So it's a level of authority, and that's the scepter that's being talked about here. And Yehuda, we know throughout time, has that authority, that level of authority in Scripture, and they were put in place to carry the word on, right, and to protect it and preserve it and so on and so forth. So we can see that scepter, that authority, definitely was given to Yehuda and the descendants of Yehuda. So, other questions in 49? Live stream.
From Clifton Madison, verse 11, what does binding his donkey to the vine mean?
I haven't got a clue. I don't know. I'm not even going to go there. Binding his donkey to the vine, and his donkey's colt to a choice vine. Now, I couldn't tell you, honestly, beyond a shadow of a doubt, so.
Overall question for chapter 49 from Justin and Denise Rodriguez: is what Yaakov is sharing with them similar to how Yahweh shows the prophet first?
Yeah, I can see what you're saying there. Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. Yaakov is just painting a picture overall for his sons, and he's establishing levels and authority and so on and so forth throughout his sons. And we see those things being worked out. The more insignificant of the children kind of disappear and blend in, and the more important stand out and take charge. And, there's a lot of different pictures that we can pull from this. And again, in Deuteronomy, we see the same thing. And again, those pictures being painted that Moshe laid out there as well. So, yeah. Okay, Taylor.
Okay, so you said all of what's being described here is what again, and why?
It's esoteric. It's there's a mystery, a certain level of mystery and connection. There's a lot of extra writings that like to jump into this means that, and that means this, and because of this, that, and it's just stuff that we can't firmly be grounded on. So that's why some will answer, some will talk about, but it's minimal because we don't want to go into that esoteric, type of thought process where we're just grasping at straws and we're trying to prove points and so on and so forth. So, the different levels of Hebraic thought. The sod is fun to be in and kind of run off on an adventure, but it can be dangerous, especially if you lose the Peshat. Since we don't know the Peshat here, the literal, then we shouldn't be messing with the deeper levels. So until we have the literal, then it's hard to really jump off into the deep end. We need a life preserver.
So the part with 22 through 25, like, that's a part of that. That's like not a blessing for Yosef or him speaking.
22 through 25. What's your specific question? And then I'll.
Like if that was a blessing towards him, or is that a part of what you're talking about?
No, I mean, Yosef is an offshoot of a fruit-bearing tree, an offshoot of a fruit-bearing tree by a fountain. His branches run over the wall. You know, we look at his life even just starting out in Mitzrayim and the captivity and the things that happened throughout Yosef's life. And then if you look at his descendants, you can see some of those pictures. So I'm not saying it's nothing that we can't grasp. I'm just not comfortable with teaching as a matter of fact or being responsible for, you know, you being swayed in the thought process when we can't firmly tell you for sure this is beyond a shadow of a doubt. Does that make sense?
It does.
So, but they're definitely pictures, and it's a prophetic picture or of what, you know, Yosef is going to be in later times. It will definitely be looking forward to his descendants and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of good here that we can pull from it. So, any other questions on 49? Janet?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I wanted to ask you something, because I remember when we were going to a congregation before finding MTOI, they were saying that Shiloh represents Yeshua.
It does. Yes, definitely. Yes.
All right, good. Okay, I just wanted to confirm that, because a lot of the things that we've heard before, we don't want to.
Yeah, the scepter or the authority shall not turn aside from Yehuda, nor a lawgiver or inscriber from between his feet until Shiloh comes, and to him is the obedience of the people. So definitely we can see Yeshua in that.
Thank you. And then when I was reading this beautiful verse 22, right, when he uses this picture, like you're saying, about the fruit-bearing tree by a fountain, I thought about Psalm 1:3. You know, when it says that blessed is a man, right? And it says, for he shall be as a tree planted by the rivers of water that yields his fruit in its season and whose leaf does not wither, and whatever he does prosper. And he was blessed abundantly, like we see it in there, like 22, 23, 24, 25, like the blessing was coming so richly upon him because of, you know, he was so faithful to Elohim. You know, he was tempted in different ways. He was tried, and he remained strong, right? And that's how we need to be, how I need to be, regardless of whatever happens. Like Brianna was saying, right? That we need to be strong. So I just thought it was beautiful.
Yeah, definitely. No, there's a lot of beauty in here. And, you know, the shepherd, the stone of Israel, you know, again, we're pointing to Yeshua and so on and so forth. We see him all through here in different pictures and places. But, yeah. So, yeah.
And then verse 28 caught my attention when it said that he blessed them. He blessed each one according to his own blessing. So it made me think how we receive according to what we do, right? Right. Yes. Reuben will say, well, you know, I mean, he went with the wife, and, you know, different things. Different people did different things. But Joseph received the best blessing from everybody.
He did. So, yeah, we see Reuben starting right off, you know, and he talks about how he defiled his father's bed and so on and so forth, and Shimon and Levi and the things that they did. So, yeah, we reap what we sow, and we get what we deserve. And, you know, sometimes the blessing we get is exactly what we deserve ultimately. So, yeah, no.
And it's encouraging because he doesn't change. He is the same for everybody. So if we are obedient to him, he will bless us.
Yeah, definitely. And so what can we take from that? We go out every day, and, you know, how we treat others, the things that we lay on them, the way we talk about them, we can expect exactly that in return from others, right? we reap what we sow. So if you want to be blessed, if you want to have a good life, if you want people to, speak well of you, if you want to be respected in the community, then that's what you also need to be giving outwardly to those around you. Respect to the authority, so on and so forth. Be honest, as Shamash Steve was talking about. Don't go out and spread lies and rumor and gossip and what have you. Otherwise, it's just going to return on you as well. So, and you know what? There's enough of that out there. We're going to receive some of that anyways, just from the attacks from the enemy. But let's not add more to it, right? So, okay.
And the last verse I had was 33, when it says that he commanded at the end. Where is that? He commanded at the end of commanding his sons, he breathed his last and died. And so it reminded me it seems like he completed and everything that he had to do, like the blessings, and then he died. It's almost like when Yeshua, he completed everything that he had to do, and then he died.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yes, it is beautiful. Yep, he drew up his feet, right, into the bed and breathed his last, and with he's gathered to his people. So, okay, live stream, do you have anything for 49?
From Selena Stephenson, verse 31, Leah was buried in the place of honor. It said previously she was unloved. Was she just loved less by comparison? In the verse, his words sound loving towards her to me.
What was the last part? Say that again.
In the verse referring to verse 31, his words sound loving towards her to me.
Well, I think he definitely had to love her in his own way. It's just at the time in Jacob's life, he loved Rachel. That was his first love. That's what he wanted. But his first wife was Leah, whether he likes it or not. And I think, he's definitely showing her that respect, though, and so on and so forth. I mean, he did have, 6 children with her, I believe it was. So, obviously, there was some love between the two of them and a lot of time spent. So, so anyways, there's definitely love and respect there shown to Leah. Yeah.
That's all for chapter 49.
All for 49. Any more 49 here? Nothing more? Okay, let's jump into chapter 50.
Okay, so for verses 17, wait, hold on. Okay, yeah, 17, pretty much when the brothers asked, and told Yosef, don't, I don't know exactly what they said word for word, but a part where that part is 15 through 18. With that part, when I first read it, it's more of a comment / question. When I first read it, I was like, okay, you guys already sent him away to die and stuff. Why are you lying again? Were they I don't know if it was possible that they did ask their father, and if their father did say that, and it wasn't recorded or something. But were they wrong in this instance?
Well, they were definitely fearful, and they were trying to manipulate the situation at best. Whether something was spoken of to their father outside of what we see recorded here, we don't know. But what we can say is what we see here. No, nothing was spoke, and definitely it looks like lies and manipulation. They had fear inside of them, and they were fearful for losing their lives and the lives of their other brothers and so on and so forth. They thought their time was up, and so they were doing whatever it took in order to preserve that life. So there's a certain level of, in a situation, again, we've talked about, whatever, a gunman comes into a room looking for someone, and you know that person's life is in danger and threat, you're going to lie to him, right? I mean, so if that's the situation, if that's truly where their motive and intent was at, right? If their motive was that they were truly thought that they were going to die by the hands of Joseph because of what they did, and now that their father's gone, then you can understand, you know, them saying this to preserve life. But if that motive was not correct, which we can't understand, right? We don't know. That's between them and the Father, and we don't have enough information here. So if we look at it that way, then you know, we really can't say for sure whether that was the case or not. But outwardly, it looks like a lie and manipulation. Sound good?
Mm-hmm. And then I had a comment about at the beginning. First, I was just like, oh my gosh, that's so sweet how he fell on his father's face and wept over him and kissed him when he breathed his last. And then again with the brothers, actually not the brothers, when they went, I think it was in verses, I don't know, I'm not entirely sure, about 11 through 12. And then when the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning at the threshing floor of Atad, they said, this is a grievous mourning for the Mitzrites. That is why its name is called Abel Mitzrayim. So that was the point when they were all going down to bury his father, right? And did all the Mitzrites go with them?
There was Mitzrites that went with them, yes, and they went up to bury their father. You know, there was, well, even the garb, you know, their dress, their attire, their clothing, you know, they probably looked just like Mitzrites. So, you know, the people of the land there could not tell any difference between them and the Mitzrites. So, you know, definitely they looked the part, dressed the part, and so on and so forth. So, and there was others with them, though, yes, from Mitzrayim. We know that others went up with him.
And then also one more comment for the brothers. I blanked out a minute when you were talking. But for the brothers, I thought inside, like, as they went along with their journey with Joseph, I would think that they would have gained enough. I don't know if he showed it, like, enough compassion or kindness from the first time when he was like, hey, I forgive you guys. I'm like your brother, you know. But they still had that fear inside of them. And I just thought it was really interesting. I was like, you've been with him all this time, and they never really like, hey, my brother forgives me. It's just like they were living with him, and they had this little fear inside, like, oh, he might kill me at any time, at any moment. So.
Well, you got to understand, too, though, Joseph, you know, in his position and authority, you know, he was a very busy man. So I'm sure they didn't just, like, hang out like we do on, you know, whatever day of the week it is or whatever evening. You know, they weren't talking on the cell phone. They weren't sending Facebook messages. You know, they didn't have a lot of time to communicate that way. You know what I'm saying? So I know we think of, you know, how could after 17 years they still be thinking this way? Well, look at sibling rivalry in the home today. You know, if it's deep enough and serious enough as a youth, clear into your adult life, and even up until your parents pass, you know, that you carry it with you. So they've carried this, you know, because of, you know, remember what happened here. It wasn't a simple thing. You know, their father, they watched their father grieve for years and years. Their brother, I mean, imagine selling your brother into slavery and him spending all those years apart, and then all of a sudden you're reunited. And the whole time you're thinking, you know, I really deserve a whole lot more than what I'm receiving here. You know, he owes me a big one, right? But, you know, as long as your parents are there, there's always that semblance of peace. And, you go home, you know, as an adult, you go home, whatever, to visit, and you know, you get the siblings around each other, and there's some bickering and poking, and, you know, kind of picking on each other. But mom and dad are always they're the head of the house, and that authority never changes. But once those parents are gone, then you get together. Now that bickering and fighting a little bit can turn into serious fights and problems as well, right? It gets more intense and more serious, and and so on and so forth. You don't realize that how much authority that the parents continue to carry, with their children, clear up until their death, or, even when they're older adults, So I think that's a very serious thing. And so I can understand the brothers, because of everything that went on and for the length of time and the seriousness of the events. A lot of time has gone by. They have got to reacquainted with each other, got to know each other a little bit. But still, that's still in the back of their mind of, they deserve a whole lot more than what they received, right? So hopefully that helps.
Verse 19, and Joseph said to them, "Do not fear, for I am in the place of Elohim." First off, I thought that was interesting because often in the book, when you see someone dealing directly with Elohim, or maybe like through a messenger, there's often that command, "Do not fear." But I was wondering about the last bit of that, "For I am in the place of Elohim," and I was trying to think if that really is referencing Joseph being sort of in that chain of command, vertical structure, or if it's more of just a reference to "I'm where Elohim put me," or maybe it's kind of both.
Yeah, I think actually it's in the form of a question. It says, "Do not fear, for am I in the place of Elohim?" So actually he's saying, I don't have that authority or that place. That's not my position. It's not, it's not my place for him to seek restitution against his brothers, and he's going to leave that to the Father, whatever that case might be. So hopefully that helps you understand that a little bit more. Yeah. Yep. Any other questions in chapter 50? Live stream? Do you have some?
From Ashley Condon, verse 3, how do I best apply the 40 days to my life regarding my mom, and why is it 40 days? What's the significance with that?
Well, there's a lot of significance. If you look into the gematria of numbers and scripture, you can see, like 3 is it's a perfect number, but it also speaks of, salvation and reconciliation, and a lot of these. 7 is a perfect number. 10 has its meanings, 20, 30. These numbers have a lot of different meanings. So I would encourage you to go and look up, if you need to, what this 40 days represents. But the real number that we need to look at here, and a point that I'd like to make and nobody's made yet, is sitting Sheva. We get this in verse 10, "And they came to the threshing floor of Atad, which is beyond the Yarden, and they lamented there with a great and very heavy lamentation. And he performed 7 days of mourning for his fathers." So that's sitting Sheva. So as we spoke back here, we see the tradition of the blessing of the children. Now we see that 7-day period of mourning for a loved one. So I think that's probably more critical. But again, it's your situation, your decision. But you can search out those numbers and look at the different meanings and understandings behind them, and make your own decision.
There's a bunch of general questions regarding the embalming, so I'll just kind of throw them at you all at once. So why did they embalm his father? And was this only done in Egypt, or was this done in Israel as well?
It wasn't done in Israel. It was because they were in Egypt and they did embalm them. And I think Rabbi's got some good teachings on that. I know he spoke of it in times past, that, we get caught up whether we're going to be burned or whether we're going to be, whether you can be cremated and or you're just going to be put in a casket, or people lose sleep over that, get caught up on it. But here they were embalmed. In other places we see other ways that they prepared the body. I think Rabbi has shared in the past that once you're in the ground, it doesn't really matter, because we're all going to end up at the same point, the same place. We're all going to end up dust at some point. So until Yeshua brings us home. So we'll just leave it at that. But the embalming was a tradition of Mitzrayim, and so that's the way they took care of his body as well. But it was not something that was done in Israel.
From Pamela Shuford regarding verse 8, Joseph left the little ones in Egypt while he buried his father. During the Exodus, Pharaoh suggested leaving the littles. Could he have known about this time?
It does make you wonder. It made me wonder as I was going through it as well. So there's nothing that we can really say yes or no, but definitely there's an implication here where, he didn't want history to repeat itself. But there was a long time, the odds of it are slim, but the possibility is there, yes. I'll just leave it at that.
From Arthur and Linda, verses 15 through 17. In a previous Torah portion, brothers claimed, "We are trustworthy." Did they really change? Would not Yaakov have spoken to Yosef directly and not tell the brothers to tell Yosef to forgive?
I would agree with that. I think, he would have spoke directly to Yosef. But again, these are things that we can't hang on to, and we need to focus on the things that we can hang on to. These are interesting, granted, because I think we all have the same thought and ideas we're reading through it, but it's not going to change our outcome. It's not going to change our walk and our journey. These are just curious things, and just some things, we don't have the information on, so we can't stand on it. But I had the same thought process as I went through it. It's like, interesting concept, interesting idea. Could this have been? So hopefully that helps. But as we go through Scripture, again, as we shared in the beginning, we're looking for those things that will help us to transform into the likeness of Yeshua. So those are what we need to focus on. And some of these things are interesting, but they're not going to help us to really grow or change our outcome or our walk or journey or anything else. So. But thank you for the question. I mean, it's okay to throw them all out there, but some we're just not going to have an exact answer to.
From Peter Newen, verse 26, is there a reason why Yosef was buried in Mitzrayim instead of the place of his ancestors?
Not that I'm aware of, other than he just didn't have a burial place there. Remember, he left there at a very young age. He's been in Mitzrayim for a long time. He just didn't want to remain in Mitzrayim when his brothers and sisters, when his family as a whole, when Israel left Mitzrayim, he wanted to go with him and be placed in the land. So, and we see that occur with Moshe, right? So. But why he didn't go at this point, I think he's staying with his people. He'd spent a lot of time and put a lot of, think of the years in prison and then the years in servitude to Pharaoh and being his number two. And, so at this point, he's been there a long time. What was he, 17 when he arrived down there, and now he's 110. 93 years in one place. You tend to grow deep roots. So I think that's why he wasn't concerned. Where Yaakov, on the other hand, had spent most of his life up there, very little time in Mitzrayim. So that was the last place he wanted to be, right? He wanted to be home. So hopefully that helps.
Verse 24 from Greg Wallen. This verse to me speaks of the importance of remembering, no matter what amount of time elapses. Was Yosef in the role of prophet here?
And Yosef said to his brothers, I am dying, but Elohim shall certainly visit you and bring you out of this land to the land of which he swore to Abraham, to Yitzhak, and to Yaakov. So I think what he's really doing is just reiterating or retelling the story of the promises that that Yahweh had given to Abraham and to Yitzhak and Yaakov. So I don't think he's prophesying, because that is already standing at this point. This understanding had already been laid out prior to this. So it's just he's continuing that line. You know how we tell stories from grandma and grandpa, and then later on our grandkids will tell stories of grandma and grandpa as well, and so on and so forth, and we pass this stuff down. So he's just retelling that story to make sure that it's firmly planted as he's approaching his death.
That is all for chapter 50.
All for 50. Any more 50? Okay. This is a short Parsha too, so if you guys have anything in any of the chapters at this point, feel free, truthfully. It's only 3 chapters, and so if something popped up, please ask.
All right, so we can start from the beginning. No, I'm just kidding. So I wanted to go over verses 10, 11, but not 10, really 11, and it starts actually with 6, 7, 8, and 11, because on verse 6 we say that we see how Pharaoh answers Joseph, right? And he says, "Go up and bury your father as he made you swear." Immediately he's granting that desire from Joseph, right? I mean, he has earned that favor by his work, and he's been granted that, and then you go down and you continue with this event, and it says that like the elders of the house went with them, the elders of Mizraim went, and eventually the inhabitants of the land, verse 11, the Canaanites saw the mourning, and then they say this is a grievous mourning for the Mizrahites. So it talks, to me, it talks a little bit about the reputation that maybe a big man had died, but also that Joseph carried that name, and everybody seemed to know him. And if he was grieving so hardly everybody else was grieving with him. And that's just amazing how much we don't realize the impact that we can have in our lives, right? Mm-hmm. When we pass, when we finally die, how many people will be there crying, right, for us because of what we did or we didn't do,
How will we be remembered? What are the thoughts? Is there going to be a celebration of our life, or just upset, or what kind of legacy, I guess, so to speak, are we leaving behind with our children and friends and family and mishpachah and so on and so forth? So, yeah.
So it makes me think that how we need to really carry, we're carrying his name, and that's his reputation in our lives. And so that's important for us to always remember, for me to always remember wherever I am, that's who I'm representing, right? And that's where I'm bringing him honor, like Rabbi says, or I'm bringing him shame, based on what I choose to do.
Yes, amen.
And then the other verse was 17. They are repeating the words that Yaakov told him to give to Joseph, right? So he says, "This is what you are to say to Joseph. I beg you, please forgive the transgression of your brothers and their sin, for they did evil to you. And now please forgive the transgression of the servants of the Elohim of your father." And then Joseph wept. And it reminds me of how Yeshua, he intercedes for us. Like we come in his authority, his name, right, his reputation. We come before the Father, but it's in his name. And so we are asking Father to forgive us. It's almost like Jacob is interceding also for his other sons, right, before Joseph. Mm-hmm. And it's just beautiful to see that. And then he says, "Do not fear." It's almost like what Yeshua tells us, right? Also, do not fear. Do not fear. I mean, that's a lot in the Gospels. He says that a lot. And he said on 21, he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. And I thought about how he says, in the Psalms that he's close to the brokenhearted, the ones who are suffering. Mm-hmm. He gives us comfort, in the times in our trials. We're not alone. We have him all the time. And 20, when it says, that he intended evil against me, you intended evil against me, but Elohim intended it for good in order to do it as it is in this day, to keep a great many people alive. So again, another reminder that whatever happens, that there is a purpose. While he was going through the trials, he didn't really know. He was just trusting and obeying and doing, but eventually everything played out, and it was good. He served a purpose. He saved his people, and helped the remnant to continue right in history. So I thought that it's good to remember always, right, that people may intend evil, but we have to trust that everything will be serving a purpose, and it's a good purpose because he's allowing that. That means that that's what we need to go through, regardless whether we like it or not, or we understand it or not.
Mm-hmm. Causing or allowing, and yes, because he has a plan, and as we shared last week too, we don't always understand that plan, and sometimes it's ugly and grim. Or maybe it's the week before, but you get what I'm saying. This here in 22 is kind of pointing to Yeshua as well, and we see some pictures of that in Romans chapter 8 as well, if you want some reference there to go back and look at. But no, and then, in 12, when you were talking about 12, it's an expression of love through obedience, because, again, they were being obedient to their father's wishes. And, we need to remember that obedience because we want that blessing. But with that blessing comes responsibility, and the responsibility to be obedient to the authority that's in our lives. And so we need to think about that when we're here, and and so on and so forth, that when Rabbi gives us something, we need to take that and be ready to serve and do whatever we need to do to be obedient in that. When he has a request, or Elder Billy has a request, we need to be ready to perform that request to the best of our abilities. So, amen. Any other thoughts or questions in chapter 50 or 48, 49, 50? Well, we're early, so it's a short Parsha. We only had 6 readings, and so how about live stream? Anything?
This is a general question from Kenya, Washington. Did Jacob know what the brothers had done to Joseph?
Did Jacob know? Let me think here. I believe that was spoke of, and yes, I'm sure Jacob knew after all this time and being in Mitzrayim and all the years and so on and so forth, and when they went back up to tell the story, when they showed up and said, your son is alive, again, specifically it doesn't point it out right at that place and time because, they pointed out that they took the coat back to him, right, or the robe, whatever that garment was, and they had covered it in blood, and they never spoke to their father as a visual witness of the event that supposedly occurred. They just took the evidence and let him go to his own conclusion. So, but after the 17 years of Jacob, of Israel, being in Mitzrayim, I'm sure that's a pretty tough thing to cover. But, again, do we have anything to hang on to? I can't think of anything specific. So if I'm wrong, I stand corrected, but I don't think so. So.
That's all the questions, but I have one.
Okay.
What is your biggest takeaway from this Parsha, and in a way that we could apply it to our lives today?
What is my biggest takeaway? I think it's the obedience and the commitment and faithfulness that Joseph had, no matter where he was at, in prison, in the pit, wherever, you did not see him balking and bellyaching and griping and complaining and talking about how unfair his life was or anything else. And then even when, he was accused wrongly, thrown in prison, because of Potiphar's wife, you didn't see him balking and bellyaching and carrying on and, moaning and groaning. He didn't have any counselor to go to. He didn't have any help to seek. He had to deal with these things on his own and with a few other prisoners. But he made the best of it. Even in prison, when he was accused wrongly, what did he do? He worked and he served. And when he got out, what did he do? He worked and he served. Wherever he went, he worked and he served. He never took his eyes off the prize. And even here in this Parsha, he's telling them, he's kind of recounting that, and he's just basically, his life is incredible. Joseph, before your father died, he commanded, saying, here he's being, again manipulated or lied to. I'm sure Joseph is sitting there thinking, yeah, did Dad really say that? I'm not so sure he did, but he didn't say that, did he? He said, have no fear. He said, because for what you meant as evil, Elohim used for good, or whatever the case may be. So he knew that, again, he trusted in Yahweh, and he never took his eyes off of Yahweh, no matter what kind of manipulation or ugly or things thrown. And when his father asked something of him, he swore, and he fulfilled his obligation to that. He was just obedient and stable and calm. So I guess that's what I take from it more than anything, is that no matter how ugly we think things are, or how frustrated we get, or how unfair things are, we need to just keep working and serving, and Elohim will bless that. And it might not be, right away. It might be down the road. And as we shared, sometimes things look really ugly and grim, but we need to focus on the overall outcome, the goal that we're all shooting for. So, amen. So, any other thoughts or questions in 50? Let me run through my notes here and make sure I didn't miss anything. Give me just a minute. I guess also in 17, I don't know if we went over it, but we'll run over it again. Just seeing that vertical structure where Joseph tried to correct his father, right? Because he knew that it was supposed to be the other way around. And again, but his father quickly, straightened that situation out. And Joseph accepted his father, even though it wasn't what he desired for technically, what were his children. He still accepted his father's authority in his life and allowed that to happen. So that was pretty amazing, I think, in itself as well. So it's that vertical structure, and we need to keep, our mind focused on that vertical structure, that, leadership is here for a reason. You always put them in place. They work hard, and we need to work hard, and, they're a good example to the direction that we need to go. So let me see here, what else? I think we're pretty good. So if there's no other questions, then I think we're going to close out. Oh, you have one more? Okay.
Okay. I forgot what chapter it was in, but but when Yaakov, mine spaced out again. Hold on a second. when he, oh my gosh, hold on for 1 second.
We got time, go ahead.
Thank you.
We're early. Let's hear your thoughts, Grayson. What was the most important part of this Parsha to you? Come on, share with us. Go ahead, Taylor.
When he switched and he blessed the younger, or put the younger above the eldest, was that like a little thing because of what happened with Joseph with his brothers, or was there no connection?
Well, there's definitely, you can see this happening routinely through the patriarchs. So, I don't think there's no connection. There's definitely a connection. But it was funny that, he was trying to stop this, even though everything that he knew from, the forefathers and the way it happened, like with Jacob and Esau and so on and so forth, So it's an interesting picture. But Ephraim, we didn't talk about it, but Ephraim's kind of a picture of the northern 10 tribes. We know when we get into the prophets, Ephraim and Israel are going to be, the names are going to bounce back and forth. So when you see Ephraim, you're thinking of those 10 tribes that were dispersed in the diaspora. They're out there in the land still yet today. So when you're reading the prophets, Ephraim's name's going to come up a lot. We even see in here, it bouncing back and forth between Jacob or Yaakov and Israel, depending, even in the same verse sometimes, you see both names because one's pointing back to what he was and one's pointing forward to what he is. So that's a beautiful picture too. So when you read those verses, look close. When you're going through the prophets and the writings, look for, Ephraim and Israel, depending, and each one have their own place and purpose of the reason why that name is being used. So.
And then in the very, I think it was after chapter 48, Yaakov also asked about his sons, Manasseh, and then the other one, I forgot what his name is. But he said that in one of the verses, he said that he's going to take Joseph's sons and they're going to be his, but then the offspring are going to be his. But then as it goes on, Yaakov asked Joseph, he was asking who are they, but he just mentioned that those are my, so what was?
It's kind of think of it like a legal term, even though you go to an attorney to have something done or drawn up, you still have to prove who you are and what you are and so on and so forth. So again, this is a legal adoption process in a sense where even though he knew who they were, he needed to hear that be acknowledged by their father, so on and so forth, for identity, for legal purposes, for so on and so forth. So, because, with Abba, everything has its place and purpose. Look at the way the temple was set up. Look at the way the sacrifices were. Everything that went on inside of Jerusalem had a place, a plan, a purpose. And when you get to the Temple Mount, there was a place, a plan, a purpose. When you're in the tabernacle that we're going to start reading about here soon, right? There was a place, a plan, and a purpose. So this is no different. So it was more like kind of a legal situation that he needed to ask these things just to confirm, to have that precedent set in this situation. Does that make sense? Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
So I was thinking of the two pictures of Mashiach. So you have Mashiach ben David and Mashiach ben Yosef.
Mm-hmm.
And so the picture of the suffering Messiah. And you mentioned Yosef's performance throughout the prison portion of his life. But I was even marveling just now at how he acted when his father said, "I'm taking your sons and they're becoming mine," and I'm, all this sort of stuff. I mean, his obedience to all of it. I was working on pallets today and listening to some people talk about things. I listened to one guy say, one of the greatest things he felt that a man could do was, the offspring, whatever. And but then I was listening to another guy, and he was talking about our attitude towards Abba, really, and whether we view him as like heavenly butler, or whether we are willing to take whatever he gives and serve him. And just looking at that, here I am looking at this portion, looking at the life really of Yosef and that servant attitude and how great he was because of having that. I mean, it's an entire picture of the first coming of Mashiach. And I guess I just had a moment of just being overwhelmed with, am I serving enough? Do I think of Abba as, this, am I looking to him to be my heavenly butler, or can I truly accept whatever and just serve, just shut up and be a servant?
Yep, for whatever's put in front of us, because that's what Yosef did. The suffering servant and the conquering king, concept with at the time of Yeshua, they were looking for the conquering king, not the suffering servant. The suffering servant, they felt like if we're bad and we don't abide by Torah and all these things, then we will see that suffering servant. But if we're good and we've carried out the law and we've done everything that we needed to, we're going to see that conquering king. So, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, all of Israel at that time was looking for the conquering king, not the suffering servant. And so when the suffering servant came, they weren't looking for it. Yeah, they were blinded to that. So, anyways, but yeah, the story of Yosef is incredible, and the pictures that he gives us, and just the level of obedience and commitment that we need to have, and the fact that he was submissive to his father. I mean, come on. Your parents walk up to you and say, hey, I'm taking your kids. Just get over it. You got nothing to say about it. And you just turn them over? Really? I don't think many of us would just turn them over. We're going to have a few things to say about it, right? So, but he was very submissive to his father's authority. And of course, this is a different time and a different place. We're comparing today to then, I know, and so on and so forth. That's not a fair assessment, but it gives you a little bit of a picture of his level of submission to his father and the obedience that Yosef had, and the obedience, that he had to our Heavenly Father, in serving Yahweh. So, yeah, beautiful picture. Thank you. Okay, last call. You got one? Go for it.
Well, I was thinking about it, and I came up with an answer to your question because you put me on the spot.
That was a long time, Grayson.
But I would say my favorite part is chapter 50 and verse 20, when Yosef is saying, and you intended evil against me, but Elohim intended it for good in order to do as it is this day, to keep a great many people alive. And I just think that's, if you're able to take that mindset that anything that is evil is happening against you, Yahweh can take and use it for your good. It won't necessarily take away that negative situation, but it can help detach the negative emotions that you would have towards it, so that way you can grow from it, because it's significantly harder to grow when you're in a negative emotional place.
Amen. And on top of that, save lives with those that we don't even realize at the time. Maybe it's people that are just witnessing our lifestyle or our situation, or those that are actively involved, but it's saving lives. Yeah, it is incredible. Great. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, I guess we're ready to close out. If you guys, we need someone to pray for us, volunteer. Let's have Mr. Rick Berry.
Abba, Father, we thank you for this time in your word, learning important things we can apply in our lives to serve you better, to serve our brothers and sisters better, to bring honor and glory to your name. We pray that we'll take what we've learned here and carry it with us throughout the week and the rest of our lives. And we ask all this in the name of Yeshua, our Messiah. Amen.
Amen. Okay. Excellent, guys. Love the questions. Yes. Okay, so if you guys want to come up front here, we'll get ready to say Laila Tov, Shavua Tov, and we love you. Squeeze tight, squeeze tight. Okay, so we got a few more coming, but on the count of 3, we'll say Lila Tov, Shavua Tov, and we love you. Go ahead and squeeze in here, guys. Okay. Elder Billy, what are you doing out there, man? Come on.
We love you. Oh, yes, we do. We love you, Billy. It's right.
Okay, on 3. 1, 2,